about fantasy versus reality and how this comes a really weird crossy over part of witchcraft in general, right? Because some people think that witchcraft is purely fantasy. They look at it and they go, this is all just made up sorcery that doesn't exist in the 3D world that we operate in. And other people, definitely, like myself, look at it and go, actually no, witchcraft is a part of this reality, is a framework to operate in, it is something to do and to use. And then how that crossover interest thing happens, right? Because if we look at genres and genres of art, movies, books, etc., there's the fantasy realm, and a lot of people would put witches under that. But then there's the non-fiction, the witchcraft as a religious practice, as a way of life that I am into with all the non-fiction and all that. And I wonder with that crossover, how much of that is devalued and or negated in a sense because of that fantasy interlinking thing. Like how many people, you know, for example, like I thoroughly enjoy Harry Potter. I'm all for the wizards and I'm all for the school of witchcraft and wizardry and like watching them be in potions class, and like I would definitely all sorts of jealous and happy. But for me, I can look at that and love it and appreciate it for the piece of fantasy and contextualness that it is, while also then knowing that they had a cauldron in their potions class and I have a cauldron that I use, but these two things are very separate in my mind for some reason, but that interest overlaps. The same way that like I adore witchcraft and I adore the practicality of it and being a year into it and continuing my studies and, you know, looking into the occult and all the histories and stuff of that. But then looking into the history and seeing that, hey, how much of this was false? How much of this was just some other magician being boisterous? How much was the church or some other overlaying religion lying about something to turn other people to their side? How much of it was fantasy? And then how that influences pop culture and things of this nature, you know? Is it weird for me to be a practical witch and also love Charmed and Harry Potter and all of these things? Is it damaging in some ways because people look at people who are witches and think, you think Harry Potter's real? You think that Charmed is a thing that happens? Like there's no actual weird Book of Shadow demon things coming after you. And it's like, well, I enjoy it as a piece of entertainment while also knowing that it's drawing on some real life thing. And then even more so, in with the balance of that with creators on YouTube, on Instagram, on playing with things, right? Like I'm leveling up my video skills as much as possible, taking different classes and courses online and just learning more stuff at my work in general since I work for a publishing company, and looking into, hey, how could I maybe add a fantastical element to a video or to a certain thing to make it more entertaining? But then worrying, does that, I don't know, nick at the value of what I am saying or showing in Instagram posts, for example, because there's a fantasy element to it? Does it matter if I add extra, you know, sparkles and stuff around the smoke to look like magic stuff is coming out of it? Does it matter if I have edited a photo to where I can have this crystal ball now floating above my hand? Like, are you not going to read the caption? Are you not going to take my practices seriously? Is it not going to be viewed as something that is something of substance? Because I've added a fantasy element to it, because now I could be associated with that person who just wants to live in a Harry Potter world. And it's like, well, one, what's wrong with Harry Potter? It's fine. Two, it's a hard thing to hold into balance, because I thoroughly enjoy those entertaining things. I thoroughly enjoy, you know, the fantastical side of witchcraft and the occult and of horror movies and all these things that seem to almost interweave and cross over and layer on top of each other in a sense. But I also see where some people might get irritated with that. I can see where it would be irritating if every single piece of creation about something categorizes what witches do in the real life as wrong or ridiculous or fantastical. Rewatching episodes of Charmed, I'm kind of irritated that there are other Wiccans in earlier seasons and they are sometimes seen as crazy or out of it or as outliers, and that these, you know, because they're not witches with power, so they're not real, but they just follow the religion, and like there's kind of like this almost constant tongue-in-cheek of real witches versus wannabe witches, which is what a lot of other Wiccans are called in a sense. And sometimes they represent someone who is they have a character on there who's like an actual like, no, I'm connected to this is my religion, this is how I do things, etc. and so forth, even if I don't have powers. That doesn't devalue it, but that's few and far between. So there are times where I'm watching it now and I get a little irritated with that, where I'm like, why do all the people who are actual Wiccans, who don't have supernatural powers within your fantasy realm, deemed lesser than? Because what, they believe that the stuff is real? Like, they operate in quote unquote the reality that is. So I see that frustration and I wonder, is it degrading in a sense? Is there a line that shouldn't be crossed? Is there something that as a consumer I should take notice of, and as a creator should I take notice of as well, as I'm, you know, branching out, making things? And like, I'm also a comic artist, so like, does it matter if I explore the beliefs that I hold in a comic that has fantastical elements? Is that just more fantastical nonsense that people have to now fight against because they're like, no, I'm not of that title that Sam wrote, I am an actual witch? Or does it really matter? Is it still just like, hey, it's for entertainment's sake, and hopefully people can look at the two and separate them and go, well, that's one thing, but it was kind of pulling on a little bit of real life in this sense, but they're still very separate. That's fantasy, and this is, you know, witchcraft as a practice. It's two very separate things, even if slightly connected in a sense. I don't know, I'd love to hear all your comments and stuff down below, because it's something I'm thinking of and wrestling with a bit, as I wonder, hey, what if I did a more fantastical comic? Or what if I wrote a story? Or what if I did some videos which had some fun like little special effects in there? Does it discount some of the stuff? Does it discount if I suddenly have learned how to edit photos that have stuff floating in the background, or a teapot pouring for itself? Like, does it devalue stuff? Because other witches definitely do that, and I thoroughly enjoy that stuff. I thoroughly enjoy seeing the entertainment and looking at it and going and knowing that, like, hey, this is just a pretty photo. This is just a piece of for consumption that has this witchy theme going on in it. But that doesn't devalue the caption down below as something worthwhile to imbue. It doesn't devalue the faith of the person who has created that or is posting that, because they're still kind of separate in a sense. But there's a balance with it, so I don't know. All your comments, questions, all those things down below. I make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.